Mic check?
Yeah, sure. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. We're here with American Longspurs in a tiny desert concert. Okay, so Zach, let me start with you. How did this group get started?
It was a long process. We originally it started off as a solo project, something I was going to do on my own, and I had a collection of songs that I wrote over the course of 2 or 3 years, and I recruited Drew, who is not here today, to play a little lead guitar on some of it. It was mostly going to be an acoustic country kind of thing. And I'd known Drew growing up and played in bands with him before. He'd never really done anything country, so it was a lot of coaching on my end. But pretty quickly, I realized that he was someone that I wanted to be around for all of it. And so we formed the band, and it was we went through many different names. And when we were actually finally recording what would be our debut EP, we discovered that, we wanted to call ourselves the American Longspurs. And I was leaving the recording studio, and I was driving with my then girlfriend to Bisbee, and we were big birders, and we were looking through the Sibley Field Guide, and we found Longspurs. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. It kind of fits the whole southwestern-y feel of what we were doing. And we added American, and that's how we got started. We never played a show until we released our album, our first EP. And,
so Chester, where did you fit in all this?
Well, nowhere up to this point.
Yeah, you're not there yet.
I was playing a show with a band that I used to be in called the Whiskey Treats, and we were just kind of like a punk bluegrass band, I guess. Had the fiddle, the banjo, the mandolin. Had actually a bass that was made out of a wash tub. Not like a wash tub, like you think of like the wash tub bass where you pull the broom handle, but this was actually like an actual bass that was just body was made of a wash tub. But anyway, so I was playing a show with them, and the American Longspurs we were sharing the bill, and I had been looking for some new people to play music with, and they had been looking for a fiddle player.
Yeah. So, I mean, we spotted Chester before they even started playing, and we're like, that guy plays the fiddle, we need to talk to him. And we ended up having a couple beers, and then by the end of the night we exchanged numbers, and then shortly thereafter I contacted him asking him if he'd want to play a show with us. And then...
Yeah, it turns out that, I'm not the best fiddle player in the world, but, there's not too many of us here in Phoenix, so they can take what they can get, I suppose.
Oh, he's being modest. We're very happy with Chester.
So, Zach, you mentioned that you had to coach one of the other guys in the band about how to sort of transition, it sounds like, from punk rock to country. What does that involve?
Well, I mean, for Drew, it wasn't so much punk rock, and when I say coaching, I use that term very loosely because Drew is very, very, very talented at guitar, and I am mediocre at best. So really it was just coaching him as far as the overall feeling. So I'd have to say, okay, like maybe throw in a bend there, one of those big, huge bends that I've been talking about. And, I'd tell him like, okay, like pull back a little bit, you're doing too much, the whole song's not a solo. And, it took a little while, but, pretty soon Drew picked it up, and now he's a machine.
So how do you describe your music?
Well, I mean, I've always described it...
I know musicians hate this question, but we have to ask.
No, I actually don't hate the question. I would say, in general, we're all country. You could throw us into the Americana category, and I've talked to a lot of people lately who would call us Texas country, which is cool. It's not something that I, had really ever known too much about, but I've heard that from so many people from Texas, and it's a real compliment to me, and I never get tired of hearing that. But as far as our music goes, it's a little bit of a throwback to some of the country music that I grew up listening to, and I don't know if you're gonna so much hear it immediately, but it's there's an influence there. If you're looking for it, you'll hear it. Stuff like Bob Wills, stuff that my dad listened to growing up. Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, and even all the way up to some of the stuff that was really popular when we were growing up, Garth Brooks and George Strait. There's definitely an influence there, as well as the punk rock bands that we played in growing up, that's there. We maybe try to hide it a little bit, but
why is that?
Well, I say hide it, but
loud.
It's loud.
Like it's always trying to look, because you can get only so far as a loud, punk rock kind of bar band, and I don't know. I guess we wanted to try to hone the sound a little bit to get something a little bit more polished, something that, yeah.
That's probably a better way of putting it. Just
more
to
dynamic,
polish it a little bit, yeah.
Some more emotion.
Yeah. I think just because of all the punk rock bands we played in growing up, we know how to get loud, but toning it down a little bit is something that we've really had to teach ourselves.
Chester, did you grow up listening to country music also?
Let's see. I grew up listening to. I grew up wanting to be that dude at all the high school parties that played the acoustic guitar. So I listened to a lot of like Jack Johnson and Oasis and that kind of stuff, and so that was where I got my start. It wasn't until I went to school in Eugene, Oregon, at the University of Oregon, and I inherited a banjo from my grandfather, who had just passed away at that point. And so I played the banjo for a while, and then kind of started falling in love with the sound of the banjo, and then listened to the music with banjo, and then I heard the fiddle, and I was like, oh, I want to play the fiddle. So then I bought myself a fiddle at the kind of secondhand store in Eugene, and worked my way up, and now I got the banjo and the fiddle and the mandolin, and try to dabble a little guitar here and there. But so I guess I would say bluegrass and kind of folk music is where my roots lie.
Can we hear a song?
Yeah, absolutely. A song that Chester actually wrote called "Tearing Down the Moon." So I can see the light shining off the water downtown tonight. I can hear about the new things getting old. Well, there's plenty of pretty women, some of them even girls that I like, but I couldn't ever make it on Broadway, I'm told. Well, it's not so much that I'm too tired to play that game. It's just that I've got no desire to prove that claim. I've got too much self-respect to waste my time. And I think you'll find that I do just fine when six-pack of talking's next to me. Yeah, I've been around the block and found that the grass is dying on the other side. When I'm off the block, I'm sooner be a little bit drunk and a little bit stoned, sitting on my porch alone. I'd like it if you had a beer with me. So goddamn nice. I've been around the block and found that the grass is down on the other side. When I'm on the block, I'd sooner be a little bit drunk and a little bit stoned, sitting on my porch alone. But I'd like it if you had a beer with me. So goddamn nice. I've been around the block and found that the grass is down on the other side. When I'm on the block, I'd sooner be a little bit drunk and a little bit stoned, sitting on my porch alone. But I'd like it if you had a beer with me. Yeah, I'd like it if you had a beer with me.
That was great.
Thank you.
So something that I think is kind of traditional about country music is the story and sort of how the song is written. And I'm curious sort of what your guys' process is for writing songs, and if you consciously try to tell a story, and if so, like if there's a kind of story that you try to tell.
I do most of the writing, and I don't know if I ever consciously set about writing a story. It's just kind of the way that I've always naturally written. And as far as a type of story, it just, if that's the way that the song goes, I kind of just let it go the way that the song naturally wants to go. I'm a big believer in, if you sit down and you try to write a song, you're gonna fail, and usually a song needs to be written at a certain time. That's what I've had the best luck doing, but usually it's just whatever I'm feeling at the time, and sometimes I'll create a story to indirectly tell how I'm feeling, but it's really just what comes out of me and what's supposed to come out of me at the time. I actually, there have been times where I'm struggling, and I'll just sit down and I'll brainstorm. So I'll just write everything that comes to my head, and usually somewhere in there there's something good to write about.
Do you find that you write differently for this band than you did for some of the punk rock bands you were in earlier?
Yes, but I think part of that is just being a little bit older, and so what I'm writing about is something that, you know, a 28-year-old man would write about, as opposed to a 16-year-old young man. And I think that there's been a constant theme in all the songs I've ever written, and later we'll play a song where I can kind of articulate that a little bit more poetically.
You've talked about sort of this alt-country category that you seem to find yourselves in, and I'm curious if that is a type of country music that is sort of accepted among hardcore traditional country fans, or if you guys are seen as, I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, I would say that as far as traditional country music fans, alt country is probably not something that they're exposed to a whole lot, but we've had a few opportunities to play to crowds that crave a little bit more of the classic country sound, and we've had some good response with them. It happened a while back where we played a show in Tempe for Valley Fever, and they do a country music night usually once a week, and there was an older couple, and they got up and danced to us, which was really cool, because when we do alt country, so a lot of times it's people that don't listen to a whole lot of country music. But what was really cool is to see, you know, people that are devout country music fans get up and enjoy it. And then a week later, we saw them at another one of our shows.
Chester, do you find that you tend to get fans at your shows who maybe don't know what alt country is, or maybe even aren't country music fans, just want to hear music and happen upon you guys?
Well, there is an interesting story. At the last show that we played, it was at
The Lost Leaf.
The Lost Leaf downtown, and there was a couple who had came to me after the show and told me that they had heard us played on
94.1.
94.1, and
a country radio station.
Oh, I guess it is. Yeah, and so they had come, but yeah, I suppose you know, pick up fans here and there, especially the ones that kind of like are maybe into more of the folk and the bluegrass. Friends that I bring, you know, they tend to like it just, you know, because they can hear a little bit of that influence in there.
Do you find that you have to sort of teach people about the kind of music that you play, and maybe the history of the kind of music that you play and sort of its background before you actually get on stage and play it?
Well, if we're supposed to, we haven't done it.
Yeah.
But no, I think we just kind of go for it at the, just, you know, when we had a show, just start playing some songs and talking to people, and you know, talk to the audience and tell them a little bit about the song. Maybe probably stray away from talking about, you know, what genre of music we play, I suppose, because, you know, like you said, you know, most musicians don't like pigeonholing themselves in a particular genre, and it's you know, difficult to, you know, classify. I feel like, you know, each different song has its own feel. You know, you could classify some songs as like much more like kind of the radio country, and some is more like rock and roll, and some is more you know, real older kind of sounded country.
Is that kind of liberating when you're writing, knowing that you don't have to sort of have a certain sound? You can sort of range between different, for lack of a better word, genres?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're currently writing a new album, a full-length album, and the cool thing about it is that we've got some songs that are pretty damn rock and roll, and then we have some songs that are very, very mellow and very minimalistic. I've got a song that I'm working on right now that I'm not even sure if I'm gonna record it to a metronome. I want it to be that free and organic, and just me and an acoustic and maybe some harmonica. But it's really liberating knowing that, you know, yeah, we can put anything we want on this record, and it'll all kind of fit together because that's what we do. You know, we've got the modern country stuff a little bit, but it's really just whatever we want to do, and that's why we do it.
Can we hear another song?
Yeah, sure.
Resonates within me, and I can't explain why I so often talk how I just wanna go. And I don't really know where that might be. 'Cause I was out on the edge of town where the cotton fields they grow, and we rode our bikes to school each day. We didn't have much, we're just a hardware shop, a grocery store, and a real McCoy. But these days those fields are gone, and so am I. Because when all you've got is the mud clinging to your boots, you give away anything to hang on to your roots. So if you're asking me if my heart's true, yes it is, and this is my love song to you. 'Cause I get sick more days than I don't. I was born like that. But you can ask my dad, he's the same way too. We was both made sad. But the songs I write and the boys by my side, yeah, they got my back. And we ain't ever gonna apologize for that. Hell no. Because when all you got is the mud clinging to your boots, you give away anything to hang on to your roots. So if you're asking me if my heart's true, yes it is, and this is my love song to you. It's all I've got is the mud clinging to my boots. Now give away anything to hang on to my roots. So if you're asking me if my heart's true, hell yes it is, and this is my love song. 'Cause with all you got is the mud clinging to your boots, you give away anything to hang on to your roots. So if you're asking me if my heart's true, hell yes it is, and this is my love song to you.
I'm curious, Zach, you grew up in the Valley, right? Am I right about that?
Yes, sir. Yes,
And
sir.
Chester, did you grow up here as well?
No, I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas. Moved around a bunch. Lived in Arkansas, California. I lived here, I would say, not all at once, but for half the years of my life, I lived here in Phoenix.
So does this place in particular influence your songs, your style of play, your music in general, anything like that?
Absolutely. I don't know if it's necessarily something that you're going to hear in the lyrics, but a lot of times when I'm writing, we've got a song where I'm painting some imagery of somewhere where I'm going, and like I said, I don't know if you're going to hear it in the words, but when I was writing it, I was thinking about just driving through the desert and making my way up to Pine Top, and then just how cool it is, how quick the scenery changes, and not to get super cheesy on you, but like how quick life changes, and but yeah, I'd say that plays a huge role in my writing.
Chester, how about you? I mean, you've moved around a little bit, but as you said, you spent a decent amount of time in the Phoenix area. Does this place affect the way that you play as well as some of the other places you've been?
Well, that first song we played, so I wrote that one, and it was some direct imagery. I kind of wrote it about my experience here, moving back, going back to school here at ASU, and there's definitely some like Mill Avenues in there somewhere, except for it's not quite. It's, I think I'm talking about the same place, but using a little bit of poetic license, light shining off the water and whatnot, and just the kind of the general sense of loneliness that one might feel, not being like a traditional student, but still attending ASU.
That part's about the water?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I'm curious because, when you think of country type music, you often think of Texas, the South, the West, and I'm wondering if you found that sort of the audience for this kind of music here is different than maybe you would find in a place like California, a place like Oregon, or places back east.
Well, I mean, if we ever get to Oregon, I guess we'll know how they receive us.
Definitely up in Oregon, like I don't think a band like this. Well, maybe, but maybe in a few cities, but in the general populated parts of Oregon, I think it's mostly kind of folk music. That's where I learned that's where I started playing bluegrass, which is strange enough that there's a big bluegrass scene up in the Northwest. But I feel like country music in general, it's you can always picture yourself walking down a desert highway when you're listening to country music. So it seems like it's a good place to play it. If anything.
I think that kind of translates anywhere, wherever you are.
Yeah, we got tumbleweeds here.
Yeah, we get tumbleweeds. I actually think that they're from Russia originally.
Are they really?
I think I learned that in a botany class I took a long time ago, that they're actually like an invasive species.
Yeah.
but yeah, they're tumbleweeds synonymous with the Southwest and country music. But yeah, I mean, really, I think what country music is to me, and what I think it could be to everyone, is it's always reminded me of something simpler and slowing down, and I think that translates wherever you are.
I mean, I think that was pretty evident in that song you just played, talking about there were cotton fields here and now they're gone and I'm gone too, and I think when you listen to a lot of country, it sort of evokes the past and sort of this nostalgia, whether it's real or not, but there's certainly a sense of things used to be better back then.
Absolutely, and I think that everyone can kind of relate to that, at least feeling that way from time to time.
Zach Zimmerman and Chester Carmer are two of the members of American Longspurs. Guys, thanks so much.
Thanks for having us. It was a pleasure.